We are joined now on the Hit It To Hoover podcast, Ep.4, with Jake Nichols and myself as the two hosts of the Hit It To Hoover podcast by head coach of the Georgia Bulldogs, Coach Scott Stricklin. Coach Stricklin, how are you doing? Welcome to the podcast, and go Dogs.
Doing great, man. Thanks for having me, and absolutely go Dogs.
Coach, I want to just open it up before I turn it over to my co-host for a couple questions. I want to ask you, how's the mood around Athens right now? Obviously, national champions, and a lot of great things are happening down there in Athens. How's everything going on down there in the national championship capital of football?
Yeah, it's everyone's in a pretty good mood, that's for sure. And still, it's been almost a month since it happened, and it's just amazing. People are excited, and they're excited for baseball. So, our players know that there's expectations on our club, and when your football team wins a national championship, the fans, they get hungry for more. So, our players know that our fans expect us to have a great year, and I think we're ready to get after it.
Coach, looking at your roster right now, you guys have 29 lettermen returning, including 8 starters. Talk about your experience and what you expect out of this veteran leadership Georgia Bulldogs team.
Well, we are experienced for sure. Got a lot of guys back, and a lot of guys that have played a ton of innings and got a lot of at bats and thrown a lot of innings. So we're excited about the depth. And like a lot of people, we felt a lot of these guys couldn't be here with the draft and even graduation, and getting an extra year with COVID and the draft being shortened. Rosters have gotten a little bit bigger, and I believe we've got 6 fifth-year seniors on this team, and that hardly ever happens in college baseball. And all these guys, they should have been drafted, every single one of them, either 2 years ago or last year, and the shortened draft just got them. So it's a good thing for us. I hate it for them because a lot of these guys wanted to play pro ball, but they're back. And but there's not a bad place. It's not a bad place to be, Athens, Georgia, to be going to the University of Georgia and get to play baseball. So we're excited about that depth and the talent and the experience that we have.
Coach, before I turn it over to Jake, I want to ask you about your starting rotation, your weekend starters. Obviously, Jonathan Cannon is a guy that comes to mind. Everybody's, including myself, is very excited about watching him. Liam Sullivan out of the bullpen, Jaden Woods, Dylan Ross, or a couple other guys. Who are you expecting to see out of that weekend rotation?
Well, you mentioned Jonathan Cannon, and he's going to be our Friday night starter. He's got the most experience as far as just being a weekend guy and just getting a lot of innings. He was a key bullpen piece to our 2020 team, and when we were ranked second in the country, he was coming in behind Emerson Hancock and Cole Wilcox, and just gained a lot of experience as a freshman. And last year, he was in the rotation, battled some illness, had a mono diagnosis coming into the season, so it was a little bit slow going, but finished strong for us. Turned down the draft. He had an opportunity to go. He was undrafted, but had a lot of things going on with different teams and decided to come back. So legit Friday night guy. We're pumped up about him. And Liam Sullivan's going to be our Saturday guy. And Liam jumped into that rotation the last few weeks of the season. We went to Arkansas and we'd had some injuries. We were beat up on the mound, and we needed some freshmen to step up. And Liam goes to Fayetteville and just pitched his tail off and just had a great outing and finished the season strong for us. So 6'6" left-hander that gets up into the mid-90s. That's going to play. That's going to give you an opportunity to be pretty good. And Dylan Ross, we believe, is going to be our Sunday guy, and he just continues to get better. It's a special arm. He's big, strong, and physical. It's 6'5" and 250 pounds. He looks like a defensive end, but just it's really hard and heavy. It's 94 to 96, and he'll probably touch some 7s and 8s, and good slider, good split finger fastball, and really competitive. So that looks right now, we've still got one more weekend of inter squads to go, but right now that looks to be our starting rotation. You mentioned Jaden Woods. Jaden's so good. That breaking ball's gotten better, and I think that's the key for him to make that next step. Having him on the back end of the bullpen with all the experience he got last year as a freshman, that's where we're going to start with. Doesn't mean he won't get into that rotation because he's so talented, and I think he's definitely a future starter for us, but having him 7th, 8th, 9th inning, that's a pretty good luxury to have.
Coach, I'm going to turn over to my co-host, Jake Nichols, for a couple questions. Jake, come on in with Coach.
Coach, I've only really got one that's been on my mind mainly, but obviously with Georgia and really the Southeast as a whole, with the talent that's across this area, what challenges have you seen kind of come about in recruiting across the state lately, and how does NIL impact that, or have you seen it impacted at all yet?
NLI is starting to creep in a little bit, and I think we're just like everybody else as far as baseball goes. We're still trying to figure it out. Football, they kind of got it going. Basketball, they've kind of got it going. The other sports, we're all starting to feel it out a little bit, and we do have some things going with that with our players. And it's kind of strange because as a coaching staff, we have to stay out of it. We're not allowed to be involved in it. It's almost kind of like the old advisor thing when they weren't supposed to have them, but they all had them, but we didn't talk about them. It was such a gray area, and I think that's kind of where we are with the NIL. Still all trying to figure it out, but yeah, that comes into play some. That's something we talk to our recruits about and say these are some opportunities that could be there, and I think we're going to know where it's going to be probably in a year or two. I'm betting there's going to be some guidelines and some guardrails that are going to be put up, because right now, especially in football, it's kind of the wild, wild west. And I think it's going to get cleaned up some, but I think they just got to figure out how to legislate it. But as far as the challenges that we have, everybody comes into Georgia to recruit our players because it's such a great state. And, a lot of teams that are outside of Georgia do have out-of-state tuition waivers. So they can come in and get our players as in-state players for them, which makes it a challenge. It kind of evens the board up. We have the Hope Scholarship in state, which is really helpful, but that out-of-state scholarship and that out-of-state tuition waiver that other schools get kind of evens that up. And we don't have anything for out-of-state players. We don't have any kind of real academic scholarships. Georgia's a very good academic institution. So it's really tough for us to go out of state and get players. We have to stay in state for the most part. And that's one challenge. The other challenge is the arms race and facilities. And we've fallen behind, and I'm excited, to say that we are going to do something very substantial to Foley Field. We have now just put out we're going to hire the architects here in the next month and a half. By the beginning of April, we'll have an architect in place to start to build and show us what we're going to be able to do at Foley Field. We've done a feasibility study already. So we're moving forward, but we got to catch up, especially those teams in the West. The facilities out there are just unbelievable, and it's so fun to go play in them. But we want to have some fun here too. And in Foley Field, right now the timeline is after the 23 season. So we're a year and a half away. But when the 23 season is complete, we will start construction on the brand new and renovated Foley Field, and it'll be ready in 2024.
Awesome. So I guess going off that, talking to Tony Vitello the other day, I asked him about the upgrades at Lindsey Nelson at Tennessee. And, like you mentioned, the West has so many schools with just, powerhouse facilities in baseball. Not just going back to recruiting, but in general, I guess. What's the challenge of, kind of being behind in those upgrades and still having to try to keep up talent wise?
Yeah, no, it is a challenge when, the kids that we're visiting here, they're going to go visit Mississippi State and Arkansas and Ole Miss and LSU. And, they come to Foley and it's awesome. It's a great atmosphere. They come to Athens. It's a great town. But then they go to those places and they go, wow, look at this facility. And that's something you have to try to overcome. So, we want to get to that point where we're not losing someone because of a facility. And let's be honest, kids like shiny things. We all like shiny things. And when you don't have a facility that's up to the same standards as some of the people you're competing against, it makes it a challenge. And, Tennessee, like you said, Tony, and he's done a great job up there, and they're going to upgrade, and we're going to upgrade, and it's just going to continue to go. And it's fun to be able to go on the road in this conference and play in just cathedrals everywhere you go. And, Foley's a great place to play, but we do need to catch up.
Gotcha. Going off that, you talked about how the national championship had kind of raised expectations for fans across all sports. I'm, as a lot of people are there, I'm sure. I'm a Braves fan, so I've got to ask, has it done anything with them winning a World Series, just reinvigorating, I guess, interest going into this season and just guys knowing what's right down the road and what can be accomplished in that state?
Yeah, there's no question. Our players, the majority of them are huge Braves fans, and Brian Snitker was a coach of mine, and he's been over to campus a few times, and it's just our guys they loved it, they followed it, they got to go to some games. We're so close to Atlanta that some of our players got to go over and see some of those games, and people love to win. And then when you win, it's contagious and it's greedy. You want to keep winning. Once you get that feeling, you want to have that feeling yourself and you want to continue to go. So yeah, our guys have seen it. You know, the Braves, no one really thought they're going to win the World Series and they win it. Georgia, it's been 41 years since we won a national championship. So people knew that we were going to be really, really good, but diehard Georgia fans were just waiting for, oh gosh, that oh gosh moment when it just didn't quite happen. And it did. They broke through and Coach Smart got it done. And so it's been exciting. It's been a really, really good run and we want to keep it going. And I think people are looking to us to be really good and in a league where everybody is good. And that's the biggest challenge. I'm biased, but I think that the SEC in baseball is by far the toughest conference, no question in baseball, but I think it's the toughest sport of any sport because, you know, football is great, but top to bottom, I think baseball is the toughest sport in all college athletics to try to win.
Awesome. Well, I guess before I turn it back over to Mitch, my last question is definitely not baseball related. I've got an aunt and uncle that live in Athens, and so coming down to visit them a few times. So I've been to Cali and Tito's, Little Italy, South Kitchen Bar and Grill, and I think if I remember right, the grill with like feta dip or something. Anyway, obviously, like I said, very non-baseball. You got any more restaurant recommendations for me?
Well, it's funny you say that. I just went out to lunch, just got back with my associate athletic director, and all those places you just mentioned. Hey, where do you want to go? Well, you got Cali and Tito. Everything that you just mentioned. We end up going to a place called Clocked, and Clocked is a burger place, and it's a kind of hole in the wall. It's right next to the 40 Watt, the famous theater downtown, and you could walk right past it, never notice it. But man, the burgers are outstanding. So Clocked is one of my favorites. There's a place that's right on the corner of Millage and Lumpkin. It's an unbelievable location called Marker 7 and a really good place, seafood spot. That's actually where we were going today, but it's closed on Monday. A lot of our restaurants close on Monday for cleaning. So we actually pulled in the parking lot and had to duck out and went to Clock. So those are two more to add to the list.
Perfect. I appreciate it, Coach. I'll turn it back over.
All right.
Coach, I've got a couple more roster, and then I've got a really fun question to close out the interview. Coach, I want to ask you about your middle of the lineup, Connor Tate, Cole Tate, Josh McAllister. Coach, you've got some bats. How do you use those bats, and how do they prepare you for SEC play?
Well, that's what we were talking about this morning as a staff is, you know, just that lineup. And, you know, we feel like we're 13 or 14 deep. And but that core 9, you know, certainly you just mentioned 3 very important guys, and you put Corey Collins in there and Fernando Gonzalez, and now we've got a transfer from the University of Florida, and Corey Acton, who's a great player. Chaney Rogers, another 5th-year player, Parks Harbor. We got Garrett Spikes, who played some as a freshman last year. A freshman, Cole Wagner, is a really good player. Ben Anderson, another 5th-year player that's in center field. So just putting those pieces together, we can go left, right, left, right. We can kind of stack it if we've got a right-handed pitcher that struggles against left-handed bats. You know, maybe top load it with left-handed bats and put Anderson and Acton 1 and 2, and Corey Collins maybe in the 4 hole. So we've got a lot of guys that have a ton of bats in this league. And you mentioned the Tate brothers are both 5th-year seniors. They're both 23 years old. They are grown men, 220 pounds. I mean, they look like they could play some football. And so we do have some physical kids, some experienced kids and talented kids. And the lineup, I think from top to bottom, is going to be a pretty tough lineup to navigate through.
Looks like I was muted there, Coach. 2 more questions I have for you. Coach, you've coached in Omaha and you've also coached in Hoover. How do those 2 compare? And, you know, we've asked every coach that we've had on here, which one would they rather play in? And 95% of them has said Hoover.
Well, you know, the atmosphere in Hoover is awesome. It really is. And to me, it's kind of bragging rights for the SEC. We got our own stadium for our conference tournament. Most conferences float around. Either they have a home team host it, or it just floats at a place for 2 years and goes somewhere else. So it's tough to build tradition. Hoover is a tradition. And we talked a few years ago about possibly moving, going somewhere else. And, you know, I was, why, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And the idea all along, I don't think was ever to leave Hoover. I don't think we ever will. They treat us so well. I love Hoover, but if you ask me where I'd rather play, that's a no-brainer. I'd rather play in Omaha because that means you're one of the last 8 standing. And I've been in both stadiums. I played, I coached in Rosenblatt, and I've been in Ameritrade, and we've renamed it. What do we renamed it? Do you know? It's not TD Ameritrade anymore.
Jake,
What
you
is
were
it?
just out there this past year. What is the new name now?
Yeah, I don't know what it is. So, we'll figure that out, but we'll just say Omaha. But the new stadium out there, they did not miss much. I mean, they've got 4 locker rooms. So you've got the home and the visitors, but then you've got the waiting locker rooms for the next team. Back in Rosenblatt, you had to sit out in the stands, and in Omaha that time of year, it's 95 degrees and humid. And so just little things like that. They got batting cages underneath the stadium for both teams. And, the fan amenities are unbelievable. And you're right downtown with all the hotels, and that town rolls out the red carpet for you. And so if you're asking me where I'd rather play, 100% Omaha. Love Hoover, don't want to go anywhere else. Love competing there. And it's a great tournament, by far the best tournament in the country. But if you're asking me where I'd rather play, 100% Omaha.
Coach, last question I have for you. You're a family man, you're a father, you're a dad. Coach, I want to ask you about finding that balance between being a coach at Georgia, then going home and being a dad and being a husband. Coach, because when you look at the SEC across the board, there's a lot of coaches in that same position. Mike Bianco at Ole Miss, of course, Van Horn at Arkansas. You go across the board, Corbin. Everybody has a family. But, Coach, how do you find that balance in being a family man, but also being there for your program and being one of the best college baseball programs in the country?
Well, I mean, think about the 2 things you love: your job and your family. And your family and your job. Let's make sure you put them in the right order. And you got to take care of them both. And one comes with the other. I don't have this job. I'm not the head coach at Kent State. I'm not the head coach at Georgia without my wife, without my kids, because they've kind of given me that background and that footing, that foundation. And I think that's part of who I am. And I think I've gotten the head coaching jobs because I am a family man. And I think you have to do things the right way. When you do, good things happen. But I can tell you, in this league, with the pressure going home after a loss, it's hard. But you know what? My wife doesn't care. I mean, she wants to win, but she gets upset if I come home upset. And so I try not to be. I don't do a very good job of that. I wear my losses. I think all of us do. But and my kids, they love me no matter what. My dogs, they love me no matter what. So just try to come home and take a breath and try to keep it here if I can. But our family is a sports family. My daughters are cheerleaders. My son's a baseball player. My wife, we met when I was a baseball player. She went through the minor leagues with me, so she gets it. So we're a baseball family. We're a sports family, and we revolve around that. And I think they just kind of go hand in hand. And you just gotta put everything into both of them, and I think everything turns out okay.
Coach, you mentioned dogs. It's going to be the closing question. Jake and I are big dog people. I actually am now just getting a brand new dog in March. So I'm very excited to meet her on Saturday. What are your 2 dogs' names, or your dogs' names, and what kind of dogs are they?
Well, I've got 3 dogs, actually. They're all rescues. My wife is huge dog lover, and we would have 30 dogs if we were allowed. In our neighborhood, 3 is the max. So I'm good with 3. We would have a lot more if we were allowed to have. We've actually fostered dogs. We bring in, dogs that have been brought off the street and they need to be adopted. So we'll foster them for a couple of weeks to kind of get them acclimated to being around people again, and then foster them out. So we've done that. And all 3 of our dogs, we call them foster fails. So we bring them into our house, we foster them, and you fall in love with them. We're not giving these up. So we're going to keep. So all 3 of our dogs are rescues. And our biggest dog, Jake, no relation to Jake Nichols. It's Jake, and he is a part lab. He's a little bit of a mutt, but he is a big dog, and he's the intimidator. When you come to my house and you see Jake, you go, oh no. Now he's a big puppy dog, and he wouldn't harm you. He'll bark at you and you'll be scared of him, but he is not going to harm a hair on your head. But man, he's 120 pounds and, white as a ghost, just big and strong and physical. And then our medium dog is Augie, and he's a mutt as well. He looks like kind of like a black lab with a lot of hair, and he's our goofball, man. He's just all over the place and loves to have fun. He's 2 years old. He's still a lot of a lot of puppy in them. And then we have Gizzy, which is short for, or nickname for Gizmo, because it looks like the little gremlin. So we got small, medium, and large, and Gizzy's about 6 pounds, and she runs the roost, man. So we got her. She's 1 pound. She wasn't supposed to survive. She wasn't going to make it. And we nursed. My wife literally was feeding her with a syringe to keep this dog going. And once she became healthy, my wife looked at me, because we're not giving this one up. So all 3 of them, we've rescued them and brought them. You know, they bring a lot of joy to us. They're a lot of fun. But we got small, medium, and large, and they're all over the map.
He is head coach Scott Stricklin. Coach, good luck to the Georgia Bulldogs this season. Jake and I look forward to seeing you in Hoover the last part of May. We're going to make the trip down there. So thank you so much for coming on the Hit It To Hoover podcast. We look forward to talking with you soon.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Coach.